You are new in Denmark, but you think you found the right home for you. And that happened to be in Andelsbolig. So how does that work? First, see our video, What is Andelsbolig Cooperative Housing in Denmark, so you understand the concept. Then we explain here how selling and buying an Andelsbolig works, and what you need to pay attention to, especially for the buyer, which is probably your role as new in Denmark.
So, you're thinking about buying or selling a cooperative home? It can feel a little bit like trying to solve a puzzle with a bunch of unique pieces. But don't worry. Today, we're going to lay out the entire roadmap for you. We'll walk through the whole transfer process, step by step, looking at it from both the seller's side and the buyer's side, so you know exactly what's coming.
Right, so whether you're getting ready to sell your share certificate, your Andelsbevis, or you're on the hunt to buy one, you have definitely come to the right place. We're going to cover both sides of this transaction to make sure the whole thing is as smooth as possible for everyone.
Okay, before we jump into the how-to, we need to get one really important thing straight. When you buy into a co-op, you're not actually buying the bricks and mortar. You're buying a share. It's a membership in the housing association, and that membership is what gives you the right to live in your home. And that, right there, is why this whole process has its own special set of rules.
All right, first up, let's look at this from the seller's perspective. You've made the big decision to move, so what's the very first thing you do? This whole first phase is all about getting your ducks in a row and locking in that official sale price. Here's your game plan to get the ball rolling. First, you've got to let the board know you want to sell. Then they'll come in and do an inspection to figure out the official maximum price. Now, this isn't a number you just pull out of thin air. It's a formal calculation. It's based on the co-op's share value, plus any approved improvements you've made, minus a little for wear and tear. You also need to get a valid energy certificate, which is good for 10 years. Once all that is done and you have the official price, then you can start looking for your buyer.
Now pay close attention, because this is probably the single most important rule for any seller. As it says here in Danish, the seller must not, and I really mean not, receive the money for the sale directly from the buyer. Let me say that one more time. Do not accept any payment directly. Every cent has to go through the Cooperative Housing Association. Think of them as the secure, neutral third party managing the whole financial exchange.
Okay, let's switch hats. Now we're looking at this from the buyer's side. You found a place you absolutely love. But hold on. Before you even think about signing anything, it's time to do some really important homework. This is your due diligence phase. You should think of this list as your shield. It's what protects you and your future home. So before you sign, double-check that the price and the move-in date are exactly what you agreed on. Make sure you get that official price calculation breakdown so you can see what every part of the price is. And most importantly, you need to actually read the key documents. The bylaws, the house rules, the latest financial reports. These docs tell you everything. The financial health of the co-op, the rules you'll be living by, it's all in there. And of course, you need to be formally approved by the board as a new member. Do not skip a single one of these.
And that brings us to the big moment where the buyer's journey and the seller's journey finally meet, signing the agreement. The homework's done, the price is set, it's time to make this thing official.
So remember that number one rule for the seller? Well, you as the buyer have a matching one. You have to transfer the entire purchase price to the association's official bank account, which is often handled by an administrator. Never, ever pay the seller directly. This is what protects you and makes sure the whole transaction is properly logged and handled by the book.
And as soon as that agreement is signed, a clock starts ticking. And it starts fast. The buyer has just 5 days to get the entire purchase amount transferred into the association's account. It's a pretty tight deadline, and it's what really kicks the final stages of the process into high gear. Let's just zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. It all starts on day 0 when the agreement is signed. Then, within those 5 days, the buyer makes the payment. Then comes the exciting part, takeover day, when the keys finally change hands. But it's not quite over yet. The buyer then gets a 14-day window to inspect for any problems. And finally, within 3 weeks of that takeover, the seller gets their final payment from the association. This timeline really gives everyone a clear idea of what happens and when. All right, now we get to what's probably the most exciting part, especially for the buyer. Takeover day. This is about more than just getting the keys, though. There are a few really practical things you gotta do to make sure you have a totally smooth start in your new home. Think of this as your moving day checklist. First, get all the keys for the home, the mailbox, any storage sheds, everything. Then, together with the seller, read all the utility meters. A good tip is to take a picture with your phone for your own records. Right after that, call the utility companies and get those accounts put in your name.
Don't forget to report your change of address, and this one's crucial. Call your insurance company and get your home insurance activated that day.
Remember that timeline we talked about? Well, this 14-day period is super important for the buyer. You have exactly 2 weeks from the day you get the keys to do a thorough inspection of the place. If you find any major issues that weren't disclosed before, you have to report them to the board within this 14-day window. That's your chance to make a claim.
And for the sellers, this is the number you've been waiting for. Within 3 weeks of the official takeover day, the association will have settled all the accounts. They'll deduct any outstanding fees or costs for repairs that were agreed on, and then they'll transfer the final net payment to you.
Okay, we have covered a whole lot of ground. So let's just boil it all down to the most critical takeaways, the things that will absolutely ensure this whole transfer is successful and legally solid for everybody involved.
If you remember only one thing from all of this, please let it be this. The association acts as the bank. The seller never takes money from the buyer, and the buyer never pays the seller. All the money flows through the association. This single principle is what keeps the entire transaction safe and secure for both of you.
And just to wrap up, a few last pieces of advice. For sellers, have all your paperwork for improvements organized and ready. It'll make the price calculation so much smoother. For buyers, and I really can't say this enough, read everything. Those documents, especially the annual report and bylaws, are your new best friends. And for both of you, just keep the lines of communication with the board open. They're there to help this all go smoothly.
You see? By following these steps and just understanding who does what, a process that seems really complicated suddenly becomes a pretty straightforward and transparent journey. The key is just good communication, doing your homework, and playing by the rules. So, the only question left is, are you ready for a smooth transfer?